I'm Libby, and I'll be reading you today's Cape Cod Times, dated Friday, January 17th, 2025. The weather looks quite nice today, although it'll be chilly. Clouds will give way to sun this afternoon, and highs will be about 36 degrees. Tonight, the temperatures fall 10 degrees down to the mid-20s, with increasing clouds and rising temperatures later. Saturday and Sunday, temperatures will reach almost to the mid-40s. On Saturday, clouds and an afternoon rain are predicted. Sunday will be mostly cloudy with some sun patches. By special request of a few of our faithful listeners, we now present the lottery numbers. For the midday drawing of Thursday's numbers game, the numbers were 3, 8, 5, and 6. The evening drawing that night, numbers were 1, 0, 7, and 5. Thursday's mass cash drawing numbers were 16, 20, 25, 32, and 35. The numbers for the Wednesday Powerball drawing were 8, 41, 52, 53, 58, and the extra ball of number 7. And finally, for the Mega Millions drawing on Tuesday, we have numbers 4, 14, 35, 49, 62, and the extra ball of number 6. The lead local story on page 1 of today's newspaper is headlined, "Work Underway for New Ferry Terminal. Project will continue through busy summer season," by Denise Coffey of the Cape Cod Times. On a recent wintry day in Woods Hole, construction of the new ferry service terminal for the Woods Hole, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket Steamship Authority was underway. A huge hole gaped open in the ground. It was the kind of hole that needed to be filled as soon as possible, said Steamship Authority Communications Director Sean Driscoll. Thus, unlike previous Steamship Authority construction projects, the work on the new terminal will continue through the busy summer season of freight trucks, cars, residents, tourists, bicyclists, and more. Starting January 4th, reservations were required for all vehicle travel on the Woods Hole Martha's Vineyard route. Construction-caused space limitations mean no standby vehicles will be allowed. "We're adapting as much as possible," Driscoll said. "We appreciate everyone's patience." The Woods Hole ferry service goes to Martha's Vineyard, while the Hyannis ferry service goes to Nantucket. The Woods Hole ferry system carried 2.3 million passengers from January through November of 2024. That includes 187,000 cars and 71,000 trucks departing from Woods Hole. And the Steamship Authority is seeing an increase in car and truck traffic because more people have decided to live on the vineyard, Driscoll said. The $32 million project includes a new ferry terminal, utility building, attendant booths, bus berths, and reconstruction of site utilities and vehicle accommodations, according to the website of Colantonio Incorporated, the project's general contractor. Colantonio was awarded the contract in March 2024, after only one of 5 pre-qualified contractors submitted a bid for $48,107,000 in August of 2023. The authority rejected that bid and decided to open separate bids for site work and landside construction. Colantonio submitted a bid for $32 million for the landside construction and was awarded the contract. The one-story terminal will have 5,400 square feet of usable space. Ticket sales, a waiting area, and restrooms will be available for travelers. Bus lanes will be next to the terminal. A 2-story V-shaped utility building nearby will be used for storage, employee lockers, and other uses. Design changes. The terminal and utility buildings were originally designed as 2-story and 1-story buildings, respectively. But those designs were changed to accommodate public concerns that a 2-story terminal would interfere with the ocean view. The new terminal will be smaller than the old Woods Hole terminal, but appropriately sized for the lot, Driscoll said. 26 different locations were considered before choosing the final site. Design changes to both the terminal and the utility building, based in part on public input, added about 1 year and $1 million to the final cost of the project. We pretty much considered every feasible corner of the site, Driscoll said. Construction project milestones. The new terminal has been a long time in the making. In 2014, the Steamship Authority Board approved a feasibility study for a new terminal at Woods Hole. Phase 1 of the project didn't start until 2018 with the construction of a temporary terminal building. After that, new slips were constructed, a new entry to Cowdrey Road, and a stormwater system was installed. In the spring of 2024, Colantonio began construction on terminal property with the installation of geothermal wells. The wells will provide heating and cooling for the terminal and utility buildings. Completion date for the terminal is planned for the spring of 2026. Why tides happen and how to keep track, by Eric Williams of the Cape Cod Times. Here on Cape Cod, tides are a daily companion. The titanic tag team of moon and sun use their superpowers to influence the ebb and flow of the sea that surrounds our spindly peninsula. And keeping track of high and low tide times can be pretty tricky because it changes every day. So we thought we would try to get a handle on this seemingly mysterious phenomenon and answer some key questions about tides. We also went searching for a reliable source of tide charts, amazingly helpful things that can keep you tidally informed on a day-to-day basis. Here's what we came up with. What are tides? Tides are very long period waves that move through the ocean in response to the forces exerted by the moon and sun. Tides originate in the ocean and progress toward the coastline, where they appear as the regular rise and fall of the sea surface. When the highest part or crest of the wave reaches a particular location, high tide occurs. Low tide corresponds to the lowest part of the wave, or its trough. The difference in height between the high tide and the low tide is called the tidal range. And that information comes from the National Ocean Service. What is the frequency of tides? Most coastal areas experience 2 low tides and 2 high tides every lunar day, or every 24 hours and 50 minutes. That information comes from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. When are the highest high tides and the lowest low tides? The moon is a major influence on the Earth's tides, but the sun also generates considerable tidal forces. When the sun, moon, and earth are in alignment at the time of the new or full moon, the solar tide has an additive effect on the lunar tide, creating extra high tides and very low tides, both commonly called spring tides. 1 week later, when the sun and the moon are at right angles to each other, the solar tide partially cancels out the lunar tide and produces moderate tides known as neap tides. During each lunar month, 2 sets of spring tides and 2 sets of neap tides occur. And that information comes from the National Ocean Service. Why is it important to keep track of tides? Tidal data is critical to fishing, recreational boating, and surfing. Commercial and recreational fishermen use their knowledge of the tides and tidal currents to help them improve their catches. Depending on the species and water depth in a particular area, fish may concentrate during ebb or flood tidal currents. That information comes from the National Ocean Service. On Cape Cod beaches, knowing the tides can make a big difference for swimmers. Because of the large tidal flats, a low tide visit to some Cape Cod Bay beaches might have swimmers asking, where did all the water go? According to the town of Brewster, at low tide, exposed sand often extends more than a mile from shore, revealing arrays of bars, ripples, pools, and rivers. While exploring tidal flats can be a lot of fun, it should be done with caution, as the returning tide can move quickly. According to the town of Brewster, an ideal time to arrive is 1 to 2 hours before low tide, allowing plenty of opportunity to explore the multitude of sandbars and tidal pools while the tide is still receding. As the tide shifts and begins its return to shore, it's possible to actually see the water moving right at one's feet. How do I keep track of high and low tide times? According to the Massachusetts Office of Coastal Zone Management, you can check the tides all along the Massachusetts coast, except Mount Hope Bay, from the Massachusetts Marine Trades Association website. The web address for Cape Cod tide charts at the site is boatma.com/tides. TikTok to shut down app in the U.S. if ban holds, reports say. Move would go beyond what law requires. By Eric Lagata and Greta Cross of USA Today. TikTok is preparing to shut down its popular short video app to hundreds of millions of users in the U.S. if a federal ban goes into effect Sunday, reports say. Sunday is the deadline for TikTok's Beijing-based parent company, ByteDance, to sell its U.S. assets or allow the app to face a nationwide ban unless the Supreme Court moves to block it. But while such a ban would effectively remove TikTok from app stores, it appears TikTok is making other plans not strictly required under the law. If the federal ban on the app goes into effect as scheduled, TikTok appears poised to shut down the social media app in the U.S., sources familiar with the matter told Reuters. The Information First reported the news. The revelation comes after the Supreme Court appeared inclined to uphold a law President Joe Biden signed last spring on national security grounds, even as President-elect Donald Trump and some lawmakers are advocating for an extension on the January 19th deadline. Under TikTok's plan, people attempting to open the app will see a pop-up message directing them to a website with information about the ban. Reuters reported, citing sources who requested anonymity as the matter is not public. The company also plans to give users an option to download all their data so that they can take a record of their personal information, they said. USA Today reached out Wednesday to TikTok regarding details of the reported plan, which is different than what would be mandated by law. Under the law, a TikTok ban would essentially make new downloads on app stores like Apple and Google no longer possible. While existing users could still access and use the app, they would be unable to update the app, which would likely degrade and stop working over time. Some lawmakers are urging Biden and the Supreme Court to take steps to prevent TikTok from being banned Sunday. Senator Ed Markey, a Democrat from Massachusetts, on Monday said he planned to introduce legislation to delay by an additional 270 days the January 19th deadline by which ByteDance must sell TikTok or face a ban. TikTok creators and users across the nation are understandably alarmed. They are uncertain about the future of the platform, their accounts, and the vibrant online communities they have cultivated, Markey said in a statement. These communities cannot be replicated on another app. A ban would dismantle a one-of-a-kind informational and cultural ecosystem, silencing millions in the process. Markey has also joined Senator Rand Paul, a Republican from Kentucky, and Representative Ro Khanna, a Democrat from California, in submitting a bipartisan brief asking the Supreme Court to reverse a lower court's decision to uphold the TikTok ban. In the brief, the lawmakers argued that there are less drastic measures that could effectively address data security issues without infringing on constitutional rights. A ban on TikTok not only violates the free speech of millions of Americans, but it also jeopardizes the livelihoods of creators and small business owners who use the app, Khanna said in a statement. We need laws to protect Americans' data, but banning TikTok is not the answer. Trump has also urged the Supreme Court to delay the deadline to give his administration time after taking office January 20th to pursue a political resolution. Despite the looming ban and TikTok's plans to shutter the app, it appears the jobs of 7,000 U.S. employees may be safe. TikTok plans to keep paying U.S. workers, according to an internal memo reviewed Tuesday by Reuters, sent by the company's leadership. Much needed break in wildfire weather. By Tao Win, Christopher Can, Trevor Hughes, and John Bacon of USA Today. Dateline, Los Angeles. Firefighters made progress in their battle against 2 massive wildfires, but residents must prepare for a return of the strong winds that could rekindle and spread the flames, authorities said Thursday. All particularly dangerous situation red flag warnings largely expired by Wednesday night without any significant fire growth, according to the National Weather Service. Temperatures were expected to drop 5 to 10 degrees below normal for the remainder of the week, with Friday predicted to be the coldest. Good news, we're expecting a much-needed break from the fire weather concerns to close this week, the Weather Service's Los Angeles office said on X. Bad news, next week is a concern. While confident that we will not see a repeat of last week, dangerous fire weather conditions are expected. Los Angeles Fire Department Chief Kristen Crowley said a large amount of unburned dry fuel, combined with low humidity and the expected return of the harsh Santa Ana winds next week, could bring more devastation. She urged residents to clear all brush within 200 feet of their homes. Flying embers from a wildfire can destroy homes over a mile away, Crowley said at a briefing Thursday. She asked residents to provide first responders with a fighting chance to save homes if the fire spread. Mudslides also are a concern. Los Angeles County Public Works Director Mark Pastrella said he expects massive debris flows when rains finally arrive. The county is scrambling to prepare flood control systems for the onslaught, he said. The fires have reduced entire neighborhoods along the Pacific coast and inland near the San Gabriel Mountains to ash and rubble. At least 25 people have died, and more than 12,000 homes, businesses, and other structures have been damaged or destroyed. The Palisades and Eaton fires, along with several smaller blazes, have burned nearly 40,000 acres in Los Angeles County, according to CAL FIRE. The Palisades fire was 22% contained Thursday, and the Eaton fire was 55% contained, CAL FIRE said. As many as 200,000 people were forced to flee from their homes. About 82,400 people remained under evacuation orders, and another 90,400 faced evacuation warnings as of Wednesday, Los Angeles County Sheriff Robert Luna said. The Los Angeles County Health Office issued a new order prohibiting the cleanup or removal of fire debris from damaged and burned properties until a hazardous materials inspection is completed by an approved government agency. California Governor Gavin Newsom issued an executive order Thursday to help with the housing needs of thousands of displaced evacuees. The order directs state agencies to support local governments in developing temporary housing plans and streamlines construction and occupancy of accessory dwelling units, small living spaces that share lots with larger homes. The order makes it easier to place temporary trailers and other housing on property while destroyed or damaged residences are rebuilt, and it extends price gouging bans on hotel, motel, and rental housing in LA County through March 8th. Newsom has also stepped in to block land speculators from targeting residents who lost their homes and are already being offered buyouts for their prime real estate. In an executive order issued Tuesday, Newsom temporarily banned unsolicited, undervalued offers to buy properties in 15 specific fire-damaged zip codes, including Altadena and Pacific Palisades. Buyers in post-disaster areas have historically argued they provide much-needed cash infusions to people who've lost everything and face years of fighting over insurance, if they had it at all. Newsom said in his order he worried that predatory developers would try to buy land from traumatized residents facing the loss of everything they own. As families mourn, the last thing they need is greedy speculators taking advantage of their pain, Newsom said in a statement. We will not allow greedy developers to rip off these working-class communities at a time when they need more support than ever before. Pacific Palisades resident Beverly Auerbach said someone has already tried to buy the land where her house sat, sight unseen, telling her to name the price. She declined, telling the prospective buyer that she and her husband were well insured and planned to rebuild. Before the fire, real estate company Zillow estimated that Auerbach's 3-bedroom, 1,676 square foot home was worth around $3.1 million. An empty, slightly smaller lot up for sale before the fire was listed at $3.2 million. Here, what's really valuable is the land, said Auerbach of her neighborhood overlooking Santa Monica Bay. The core of Pacific Palisades was originally developed by the Methodist Church as an affordable retirement area for church employees. Once home to carpenters, electricians, and mail carriers, the neighborhood's property values have skyrocketed over the intervening decades, especially as owners renovated the once small houses to add bedrooms and bathrooms. In Altadena, longtime residents also worry that the historically minority community will be priced out during recovery and rebuilding. Fears of speculators and developers swooping on the tails of a disaster are a long-standing concern, although there's mixed evidence about whether it reflects reality. An August 2024 review by the Texas Real Estate Research Center at Texas A&M found no systematic increase of investor purchases following recent floods there. But a 2023 analysis of hurricane-hit areas in Florida from 2000 through 2016 found neighborhoods damaged by hurricanes saw richer people moving in as damage was restored. Auerbach said she expects extended litigation first, but she's looking forward to living around her neighbors again. We are going to rebuild, and almost everybody else is saying that, she said. In girls' ice hockey news, we have an article headlined, Barnstable Honors Its Cancer Survivors, by Alan Gunn of the Cape Cod Times. Dateline, Hyannis. Every 3 minutes, somewhere in the world, a family hears the devastating words that their child has been diagnosed with cancer. According to the American Childhood Cancer Organization, each year in the United States, an estimated 15,780 children from birth to age 19 are diagnosed with cancer. For two Barnstable girls' high school hockey teammates, that same news was delivered to them 2 years apart. Maya White was diagnosed with stage 3 anaplastic large cell lymphoma in January 2022, while Emma De Silva learned she had stage 2A Hodgkin lymphoma 27 months later. The cancer family is one of those things that you'd never want to be a part of, but once you are, it's the best community ever. White's mother, Caitlin White, said, "Everybody understands one another, and you don't even need to say what you're feeling because they just know it." Still, it's hard to prepare for it. So much went through my head, De Silva said. I didn't even know where to start, but the first thing that went through my head was hockey. I was going to play again. The Whites did everything they could to have fun, as there were a lot of hard days that surrounded the good. There was a lot of crying, there was a lot of laughing, and a lot of dancing. They both underwent treatment and went into remission less than 6 months later from their diagnosis, and are now cancer-free and back to their sporting pursuits. Back on the ice. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever gone through in my life, De Silva said. To get through it, knowing it's in the past, it feels good to move and be back playing hockey. Hockey served as a driving force for both De Silva and White during their treatment, to be back out on the ice with their teammates. White, now a senior, missed her sophomore season, while De Silva did everything she could to not miss a single minute of her senior season, and she didn't. When you're in treatment, your life is put on pause, Maya White said. You really can't see friends. You don't go to school, so when you're almost through it and you can get all that back, it's really special. During her treatment, White would come to some of the games, and seeing her teammates was added motivation. While she was rooting for them, they were rooting for her. Their personal battle has given so much perspective to the current Redhawks, and that's something first-year head coach Mark Fellows has leaned on this season, both on and off the ice. It's perseverance. Those two young ladies showed the team that you can overcome a lot, and you can come back from things that you can't even imagine, Fellows said. The girls are seeing that you can be stronger than you give yourself credit for. Despite their 0-7 record, the Redhawks are starting to believe in themselves. White and De Silva are a huge part in that. It's not in just what they went through, but their talent on ice. Both start for Fellows. There's definitely a new feeling of gratefulness, Maya White said, that you're able to play and how special it is that you're healthy enough to do so. Maya's Militia. The Red Hawks hosted their annual Pink in the Rink game on Wednesday against Marshfield at the Hyannis Youth and Community Center to raise awareness and money for pediatric cancer. The final score, 7-0, paled in comparison to what the night meant to Maya White and De Silva. All the Red Hawks were wearing pink jerseys instead of their usual home whites. This year, it was even more special as the proceeds benefited Maya Militia, which is the foundation that Maya White started during her battle. The other day, they brought up that they wanted to give the proceeds to my foundation, and that was a bit shocking because this team has already supported me so much, Maya White said. That endless support just means so much to me. The foundation not only raises valuable dollars for pediatric cancer, but also provides care packages for those battling cancer and their siblings. The care packages include all the things that helped White get through her treatment. White's impact reached Capitol Hill when she went to CareFest in Washington, D.C. this past September. She was able to talk to lawmakers about getting more funding for research and support. Her foundation's journey has taken her to center ice at TD Garden for the ceremonial puck drop at a Boston Bruins game, something Maya White called crazy and beyond. As horrific as it is to be told your child has cancer, there are so many entities out there that can support you, Caitlin White said. If you don't know where to go, you can always reach out to us. There are several photographs accompanying this article. One has Maya White of Barnstable in her pink jersey, bringing the puck up against Mackenzie Mills of Marshfield in her black jersey. And there's another picture with the caption, Caitlin White holds up flowers as her daughter Maya White, Emma De Silva, cancer survivors, and Captain Emma Hanowan listened before Barnstable's game against Marshfield. And Mom Caitlin White is on the ice with the three girls in their pink jerseys and helmets. Diplomats hope Israel and Hamas ceasefire will hold, by Terry Collins of USA Today. Relieved, hopeful, even optimistic. Those are the immediate reactions of some peace builders in the Gaza Strip, the U.S., and elsewhere Wednesday after Israel and the militant group Hamas reached a new Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal. I can't tell you how relieved our staff in the region are, as are our members. This has been the hardest 15 months any of us have ever endured, said John Linden, Executive Director of the Alliance for Middle East Peace, a fast-growing coalition of about 170 organizations worldwide working toward peace building, especially among the Israelis and Palestinians. As this deal takes root, we must immediately turn our eyes toward what comes next, he said. Scheduled to start Sunday, the truce is intended to stop the fighting that has devastated Gaza, caused unrest in the entire Middle East region, and left tens of thousands of people dead in the process. Mediated by the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt, the deal includes a 6-week initial ceasefire phase and gradual withdrawals of Israeli forces from populated areas of Gaza. It also covers the release of hostages held by Hamas in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian detainees held by Israel. We've reached the halfway point of our program today, and regular listeners are aware that at this stage of the broadcast we move to the obituaries. The first obituary is for Thomas Charles Kenny, dateline Falmouth. Thomas C. Kenny, age 83 of Falmouth, passed away on January 10th. He was born in Cambridge to Maurice and Margaret Kenny. Married to Mary Ann Scannell Kenny for 55 years. He was the father of Susan and Sarah and grandfather to several. Tom had a remarkable career as an attorney in Falmouth for over 40 years and was an author of novels set in Boston based on his broad and varied interests. Visitation will be Monday, January 20th, from 4 to 7 p.m. at Chapman Funerals and Cremations on Main Street in Falmouth. The funeral mass will be held Tuesday, January 21st at 10 a.m. at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Church on Quaker Road in North Falmouth. For the full obituary, please visit the website of Chapman Funeral. Ruben Kersner, dateline Hyannis. Reuben Kersner of Hyannis, formerly of Brookline, died on Tuesday, January 14th, at the remarkable age of 102. Beloved and devoted husband of Bella Swacer for 74 years. Devoted father of Ruth, Alan, and Audrey. Loving grandfather. Reuben's parents and siblings were killed in the Holocaust, except for his predeceased brother Jerry. Reuben is mourned and deeply missed by his nieces and nephews here and in Israel, as well as many cousins and friends. Services at Levine Chapels on Harvard Street in Brookline on Friday, January 17th, today, at 12:30 p.m. Interment at Sharon Memorial Park on Dedham Street in Sharon. Memorial observance at the home of Audrey and Michael Sayat immediately following the burial through 7 p.m. and continuing on Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m. Remembrances, if desired, may be made to the American Association of Jewish Holocaust Survivors and Descendants in Brookline and to Home Care Choices in Sandwich. More information can be found at levinechapel.com. Baseball icon Bob Uecker dies at 90, by Steve Gardner of USA Today. For a backup catcher with limited physical talent, Bob Uecker enjoyed a larger-than-life career in baseball and beyond, due in large part to an uncanny ability to laugh at himself. Uecker, a baseball icon, television and movie funny man, and Hall of Fame Milwaukee Brewers radio announcer, died Thursday at the age of 90, the Brewers announced on social media. Known affectionately as Mr. Baseball, Uecker hit just .200 for his career and played only 6 seasons. Yet his infectious personality made him a valued teammate in the clubhouse, even if he wasn't contributing much on the field. Despite all the jokes about his playing career, Uecker was a member of the St. Louis Cardinals, a team led by Hall of Fame pitcher Bob Gibson that won the World Series in 1964. Bob Uecker's undistinguished MLB career. Uecker reached the majors in 1962 as a 28-year-old rookie catcher with his hometown Milwaukee Braves. He played 2 seasons in Milwaukee before being traded to the Cardinals in 1964. He was traded twice more before his career ended to the Philadelphia Phillies in 1965 and then back to the Braves, who by then in 1967 had moved to Atlanta. Over 843 plate appearances in 6 seasons, Uecker hit .200, .293, and .287 with 14 home runs and 74 RBI. While offense wasn't his strong suit, he wasn't very good defensively either. In 1967, he led the National League in both passed balls at 27 and errors by a catcher at 11. To be fair, his frequent battery mate on the Braves team was knuckleballer Phil Niekro, who provided the basis for one of Uecker's many memorable quotes. Uecker, Johnny Carson make hilarious pairing. Not long after his playing career ended, Uecker joined the Brewers radio broadcast team, where his folksy style and self-deprecating humor made him an almost instant hit with fans. The 2024 season marked Uecker's 54th as a Brewers broadcaster. Uecker became known to millions more from his appearances on NBC's Tonight Show with host Johnny Carson. Starting in 1971, he appeared approximately 100 times as a guest on the show, frequently cracking up Carson with his deadpan delivery. Sporting goods companies would pay me not to endorse their products, he once quipped. Uecker's popularity helped land him a starring role in the situation comedy Mr. Belvedere. Uecker played the role of sports writer and family patriarch George Owens on the show, which ran on ABC TV from 1985 to 1990. I must be in the front row. Personality also made him a perfect pitchman in a series of immensely popular beer commercials for Miller Lite, starting in the 1980s. Among the ad's stable of current and former sports stars, Uecker stood out for his comedic timing and his ability to deliver iconic lines. Perhaps the most famous one came when he's seen at a ballpark watching a baseball game. When an usher comes along and asks him to move out of his seat, Euchre exclaims excitedly, "I must be in the front row." However, he turns out to be not quite as important as he thinks and finds himself in perhaps the worst seat in the stadium, far away from the action. As a result, a new term for the so-called nosebleed section of a stadium was born: Euchre seats. In fact, a plaque and life-size figure of Euchre were placed on the last row of section 422 in Milwaukee's American Family Field, then Miller Park, in 2014 in commemoration. Just a bit outside. Euchre continued to broadcast Brewers games even as he was expanding his portfolio as an actor. Occasionally, the two merged into one. Euchre was cast as baseball play-by-play announcer Harry Doyle in the 1989 movie Major League, giving an over-the-top performance that was largely ad-libbed. Among his memorable lines, "Haywood crushes one toward South America," and after an incredibly wild pitch that was all but impossible for the catcher to grab, "just a bit outside." Euchre was so popular in the role that he returned 5 years later to reprise the role in 1994's Major League 2, and again in 1998's Major League Back to the Minors. In addition to many television guest appearances and voiceover cameos as himself, Euchre hosted a syndicated sports blooper show called Bob Euchre's Wacky World of Sports that ran from 1985 to 1996, and another called Bob Euchre's War of the Stars. Get up, get out of here, gone! At the center of everything, baseball was still the sun around which Euchre revolved. He relished being at the ballpark, and he was dedicated in his pre-game preparation. In addition to his duties with the Brewers, Euchre was also part of ABC's Monday Night Baseball broadcast team in the 1970s and early 80s, along with host Warner Wolf and play-by-play announcer Bob Prince. In the 1990s, he moved to NBC, teaming up with play-by-play man Bob Costas and analyst Joe Morgan. Although he began to reduce the number of games he called for the Brewers in 2014 due to health issues, he continued through the 2024 season, his 54th consecutive with the club. With his signature home run call of "Get up, get out of here, gone!" Euchre was named Wisconsin Sportscaster of the Year 5 times by the National Sports Media Association. He was later inducted into the organization's Hall of Fame in 2011. And in perhaps the ultimate irony, Robert Eugene Euchre, a .200 career hitter with 14 home runs, was inducted into Cooperstown in 2003 when he received the Ford Frick Award, given out annually to a broadcaster by the Baseball Hall of Fame for major contributions to baseball. The Ask Carolyn column today is headlined, "Partners' Untreated Menopause Symptoms Take Mental Toll on Family." Dear Carolyn, my partner of almost 25 years, Mary, started perimenopause around 10 years ago, and her menopause symptoms have gotten progressively worse. Our son, then 5, is now 15, and he sees only this version of his mother, not the positive, interested person she was for so many years. Mary also devalues and damages her friendships, holding people to unrealistic standards, reading the worst possible interpretation of actions and comments, often believing her friends don't like her or think she's stupid. Her work also suffers from negative self-talk. After trying several prescription options, she used one that brought her back to the optimistic and positive person she was before. Unfortunately, there was a side effect of nausea, so she stopped taking the medication and her symptoms returned. She's now refusing to try other options or return to the gynecologist, and when I try to encourage her, I'm told I don't understand and have no empathy for her situation. I know I'm not experiencing this personally, but nausea seems to me a small price to pay for all the mental upside. I don't think she can see how bad her frame of mind has become and how it's impacting her relationships. Signed, The Change. Change. It's a small price to pay because you're not the one wanting to puke 24/7. So that's a no-go. And continuing to pitch that argument to her just hands her a win with her "you don't understand" and lack of empathy point. That's too bad, because you're actually the one with the bigger, more valid point to make here. Mary is within her rights to refuse treatment, of course, but it's a short-sighted decision if she's making it without full consideration of its cost to the in-house adolescent who is counting on her mightily right now. And its cost to you and her friends and her career, yes, and of course to her own health, which may have more going on given the severity and duration. Not that the current diagnosis must be wrong or isn't sufficiently serious. But it's her son who's having his one shot at childhood, no do-overs, so that's where you focus. Start by apologizing for your breezy dismissal of unrelenting nausea as small. I am fixating on this, yes, but wow. It's small if you choose it for yourself, not if you choose it for someone else, okay? Okay. Then bring it back to her son. As sympathetic as you are to her internal experience, the external symptoms make up a disproportionate amount of his relationship with her. And your role here as partner and parent is to think forest while she's preoccupied with her tree, as you hope she would do for you if you were in the midst of a personal struggle. Then bring it back again to your full awareness and appreciation for the size of the ask. You know you're asking her to run chemical experiments with her body and moods. Then say you wouldn't ask if it weren't about the welfare of the one person you feel justifies asking it. Before you ask for anything in your son's name, be sure what you're witnessing is really about her symptoms, and what you're asking for is really about his well-being. It never hurts to run a deep scan for self-interest before you go crusading in. To join Cape Cod in remembering Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. by Desiree Nick Farjam of the Cape Cod Times. Join Cape Cod in remembering Dr. Martin Luther King. With a weekend of events and services, there are so many ways to remember the eminent civil rights activist. Here's what we found. Neighbors, the play at the Cultural Arts Municipal Building in Harwich. The play Neighbors explores the prejudices experienced by people of color and others who don't fit into the general society's norms on Cape Cod, according to Judith Pardelow, producer of the play. The play was written as a collaboration of many writers who expressed their own experiences, which are acted out by the cast. I hope everyone goes away feeling like they learned something and appreciate one another more, said Pardelow. The show starts at 7 p.m. on January 20th at the Cultural Arts Municipal Building in Harwich. It's free to the public. For more information, check out their website. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Service of Commemoration in Hyannis. The First Baptist Church on Main Street in Hyannis is holding a service of commemoration at 3 p.m. on January 19th. The service is open to all and will include a keynote speaker, Roberto Maiti, an award-winning filmmaker who created Legacy of Love, a documentary that explores the early years of the relationship between Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott, according to the press release. I've learned so much already. He's just a natural educator, said Edie Neesmith, executive director of the Cape Cod Council of Churches, who said she's excited to hear Maiti speak after talking to him on the phone. In addition to hearing from Maiti, the First Baptist Church will also welcome a recital of I Have a Dream speeches that were written by local Y Achievers program and students from Hyannis West Elementary School when they were in second grade. The annual service is co-sponsored by the Cape Cod chapter of the NAACP. Following the service, there will be food and fellowship. The AmeriCorps and American Red Cross MLK National Day of Service in Harwich. AmeriCorps Cape Cod and the American Red Cross Cape Cod are hosting a community service workshop in honor of MLK Jr. Day. Join them from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on January 20th at the Cultural Arts Municipal Building for a free, hands-only CPR workshop and disaster readiness tools and information for emergencies. There will also be a kids' corner for coloring and story time. AmeriCorps is also accepting donations for emergency kits such as blankets, flashlights, and batteries. Please register at capecod.gov Departments AmeriCorps. No Place for Hate Falmouth Community Breakfast. Falmouth is hosting a No Place for Hate community breakfast from 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. on January 20th at the Kuna Messet on Gifford Street in Falmouth. The morning will include a keynote speech on Dr. King's work and mentorship by James Morton, retired CEO of the YMCA Boston. Reservations are required, with tickets at $30 for adults, $15 for students online, and a $5 upcharge at the door. There will be live music and food. MLK Day event sponsored by Art Peacemakers in Wellfleet. Join the community in Wellfleet on January 20th for a day filled with events in honor of MLK. At 11 a.m., a drum and song circle will be hosted at Wellfleet Town Hall, followed by a silent walk at 11:30 a.m. At noon, the community is welcome to gather at Wellfleet Preservation Hall to inaugurate Our Dreams, featuring poet Tamora Israel. There will also be a food pantry donation drop-off at the Town Hall parking lot from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Wellfleet Preservation Hall will also be hosting an MLK art show for racial justice through February 6th. Land Leaves the Beach. Tech Schools Compete by Gwen Friss of the Cape Cod Times. As January rolls on, so does the latest in Cape Cod restaurant news. Fans of San Diego's Mexican Cookery and Bar, a 42-year-old institution in Hyannis, were sad to see the restaurant up for sale last week. Co-owner Clark Buchanan said he wants to retire. There's hope for customers and San Diego's 75 to 110 staff members, though, as the sale could include recipes, trademark, and more, allowing a new buyer to run the business the same way. In other news, Farland in Provincetown is going to close its beach concession. Cape Cod Beer will host celebrity beer tenders, and Upper Cape Cod Regional Technical School in Bourne is hosting its second annual Burger, Slider, and Cupcake Challenge. Here's a roundup of what's been happening on the Cape Cod restaurant scene. Provincetown's Farland Provisions won't return to Herring Cove Beach. After more than a decade, Farland Provisions in Provincetown will not return to Herring Cove Beach in the National Seashore this summer to sell food and host a free full weekly concert. We've been having trouble with staffing and with staff housing, like a lot of restaurants, said Tom Boland, who has co-owned Farland for 20 years with Jim Farley. The decision to close the beach concession after last summer's season will not affect the Farland Provisions year-round market at Bradford Street, Boland said, or its 20 or so employees. We have a full bakery, catering, grab-and-go meals, and a small grocery business, but our bread and butter is the breakfast and lunch sandwiches, Boland said. Our signature is called the Pilgrim Lights. It's turkey with cranberry chutney that Jim and I have been making for years. We make the chutney for the sandwiches fresh in store, but we also sell the Cape Cod cranberry chutney by the jar for $8.99, which we've made with our recipe and jarred, Boland said. Farland Provisions is also known for its chocolate chip cookies. The store is open daily year-round with the exception of an annual winter break, which will happen this year from the end of business on March 2nd to March 22nd. There are a few businesses similar to ours that operate year-round. It's really a chance to provide a community for people. We see lots of familiar faces in the winter, said Boland, noting that he and Farley have lived in Provincetown for 34 years, all told. Having hosted more than 120 free concerts on Wednesday nights during 12 years at Herring Cove Beach, the business partners worked with now familiar names like Zoe Lewis, Chandler Travis, and the Rip It Ups. We'd get a few hundred people, and we enjoyed it, Boland said. But like so many things, it's run its course. Are there Cape Cod beer suds in your future as a celebrity beer tender? Do you have what it takes to be a celebrity beer tender for a couple of hours at Cape Cod Beer? If you can pour a beer from the tap and agree to donate all your cash tips to a certified nonprofit, then you're in. They'll be working with regular bartenders. Guests won't have to handle credit cards or cash. They'll mostly be pouring the beer and interacting with the crowd, said Leanne Anderson, Cape Cod Beer's marketing and events manager. The program kicks off from 6 to 8 p.m. on January 23rd with Cape Cod Young Professionals Executive Director Emily Wagner dishing up the suds for her group's scholarship fund. On February 13th, Amy Carroll and fellow members of the Mark Hennessy Foundation will be working for their nonprofit, which supports local music students. And on March 6th, musician Sarah Swain of Sarah Swain and the O Boys will come out for the Cape Wellness Foundation, which supports people with cancer and their families. Anderson said the beer tender program came about while brewery staff were brainstorming ways to keep locals coming out in the off-season. It benefits local nonprofits, she said, by giving them a way to raise money without having to rent out the whole brewery for a fundraiser. Anyone interested in beer tending for a couple of hours to raise money for a nonprofit can contact Cape Cod Beer using the contact form at the company's website. $10 buys many tastes. Cape Tech School restaurants open to the public. It's time for the second annual Burger, Slider, and Cupcake Challenge, which will see budding food stars from local technical schools face off from 3 to 6 p.m. January 24th at the Upper Cape Cod Regional Technical School in Bourne. The event, with free tasting for all attendees, is open to the public at $10 per person. Tickets are available at the door at 220 Sandwich Road. Sample the goods from 4 competing schools: the Upper Cape, the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School in Harwich, the Greater New Bedford Regional Vocational Technical High School, and Southeastern Regional Vocational Technical School in Easton. Each school will enter 2 teams of 4, with each team creating their own beef slider and mini cupcake. For $10, you get to try everything. All of our supplies are donated, so ticket proceeds support the Upper Cape Culinary Arts Student Club, said Chef Josiah Elias, lead culinary instructor at the Upper Cape School. Elias said about 250 people attended the first competition. If you can't make this year's slider contest, you'll still have a chance to give school lunch another look. Both Cape Cod Technical Schools have restaurants open to the public, where you can eat specialty dishes prepared by culinary students working with professional chefs. The Cove on Pleasant Lake Avenue in Harwich is open 2 Thursdays and Fridays a month, with the next open dates for reservations being January 30th and 31st. A menu will be posted on the Cove's website by January 28th. The Cove's last menu included crispy fish tacos for $11, Moroccan chicken tagine for $9, mezzo plate for $9, and a smash burger with cheese and Crusader fries, named for the school's teams. The Cove is at the school's main entrance, and reservations may be made by calling, but walk-ins are accepted with space permitting in the 36-seat restaurant. We are a school and the students are learning. We all live by the bell, said Chef Matthew Tropiano, explaining the Cove's limited public hours. Tropiano, the newest culinary instructor at Cape Cod Tech, formerly owned the now-closed Spoon and Seed restaurant, and before that worked at Pond d'Avignon, both in Hyannis. Upper Cape Tech in Bourne will open its Canalside restaurant for dinner service for the first time on Friday and Saturday, March 7th and 8th. There's a 75-person cap for each night, Elias said. Canalside Restaurant will begin accepting reservations for the 2 evenings of dinner service on February 1st. The public restaurant is open by reservation only. Call the school to book. Meanwhile, Canalside Restaurant is open for lunch by reservation. Most days, the school is open. A menu included an appetizer of Bang Bang wings for $10, fish and chips for $12, the UCT Ram Burger for $10, and a Tuscan chicken bowl for $12. Wednesdays are $6 burger day, and Fridays offer $10 pizzas. Looking for a Cape-based book to read in 2025? Here are 4 by local authors to try, by Desiree Nick-Farjam of the Cape Cod Times. With the new year comes New Year's resolutions. Perhaps you've decided to do more reading this year. That's great, but it can be hard when you don't know where to start. And the tricky part is finding something that feels relatable, close to home, so to speak. Here are 4 books based on Cape Cod, or written recently by Cape authors, to help kick off a year of reading. Dawnland by Tess Callahan. Callahan's latest book brings 2 brothers, their wives, and children to their family summer vacation on Cape Cod. The annual family trip is usually the same week of dealing with kids, work, and the regular troubles of life. But this year, Oliver and April, the wife of Oliver's brother Al, have a secret that they're keeping from the rest of the family. Although the 2 have a history, it's their more recent history that they're worried will come out. As the week goes on, it becomes more and more difficult to hide. Let the Wildflowers Grow by Brigitte M. Becker. A heartbreaking and inspiring story about the beauty and challenges of adoption. Let the Wildflowers Grow is a story that will take you on a roller coaster through more than 10 years of a mother's journey with her daughter Anna, who she and her husband adopted from a Ukrainian orphanage. Motherhood can be a difficult journey, but Becker's complicated and painful relationship with Anna offers an interesting perspective on raising children and dealing with trauma. Secret of the Chatham Sharks by D.J. Kelly. Dorothy J. Kelly writes an amusing and adventurous story of 2 friends, Marlene and her neighbor Jay, who spend the summer on Cape Cod. Chatham is known for its summertime shark sightings, as seen in the book. The story is a coming of age that is filled with mystery, adventure, and will teach you so much about the great white sharks in the waters off Chatham. This book has so many tidbits from all over Chatham. A map of the town is written through the book. And finally, A Moving Meditation, Life on a Cape Cod Kettle Pond by Stephen G. Waller. This vivid account of the beautiful nature, sceneries, and pockets of joy that can be found on Cape Cod is a reminder of what keeps people on Cape Cod year-round. In a series of essays taken from Waller's personal journal entries, readers get a glimpse of how the author visualizes and experiences his little corner of the world, Centerville's Long Pond. Impressed, Very, Cape Student Art on MLK's Later-in-Life Theories by Rachel Devaney of the Cape Cod Times. Dateline, Hyannis. A smile popped across NAACP Cape Cod President Lynn Rhodes's face as she stood in the Zion Union Heritage Museum basement on January 8th, holding a clay sculpture titled Nuclear Silence. The sculpture, composed by Bourne High School student Madeline Rossignol, depicts a mushroom cloud, the result of a large explosion, with an intricate rounded cap and central column. On the front of the sculpture is a pair of lips that have been covered by black tape. The sculpture is one of 5 art pieces entered into an NAACP art contest in the fall, and was recently judged by local artists Kip Keene and Robin Miller. Rhodes will name a winner of the contest at the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Service of Commemoration on January 19th, said Rhodes. I'm recognizing that all of the student artists that participated in this contest have a voice, and they aren't afraid to use it, said Rhodes. I'm very impressed with how these young adults express themselves. The commemoration at 3 p.m. at the First Baptist Church in Hyannis is the longest-running Martin Luther King Jr. service held on the Cape, beginning in 1982, said Rhodes. At the service, keynote speaker Roberto Mighty will speak about the romance and mission surrounding King and how that connects to Mighty's documentary Legacy of Love. The service will be live-streamed. Through their art, students created their own take on King, said NAACP executive member Rick Draper, leaning heavily on King's later-in-life thoughts about economic and political equality. Their work, said Draper, is based on King's quote, "Our lives begin to end the day we come silent about things that matter." And that's all I have time for today. This is your reader, Libby, saying thank you for listening.